Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room.
Delegate Delaney.
Here.
Citizen Member Babachenko.
Here.
I believe Delegate Corner's here. She's in the back. And Delegate Coiner.
I'm here.
Are we ready to start? I think that's our quorum. We will be taking a vote on our work plan for today. The work plan for the 2025 year. But the vote is before us today, and we are also going to be adopting our remote policy meeting, which is the same remote policy meeting we've been operating under for the last 3 years. So there's nothing new there. As you can see, I will soon turn the item 2 over to Ms. Adams, so she can go through our study plan. All of these items have been started and are underway. Some of them have a full study committee. Some of them will actually involve around presentations from experts. But in each of these 5 cases, the commission will be receiving recommendations that we can decide to act on in November. I try to do it at our November meeting because the December meeting is so busy. And then we can decide if we want to move forward with recommendations or not, and whether they should be budget amendments or legislation. Amy, go ahead and walk us through.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'll draw your attention to the study plans before you. The first one has to do with the review of Virginia's special education dispute resolution. This is a 2-year study that you approved last year. In the first year 1 and year 2 is pretty much the same as what you approved last year. On page 2, if you'll notice, Delegate Lee Ware's bill passed this past General Assembly session, and it's a bill that expires in July 1 of 2027, and the legislation's third enactment clause directs the Virginia Commission on Youth to study and make recommendations on the provision of the first enactment of Delegate Ware's bill.
But a report is due November 1st, I believe.
The report for the dispute resolution is due November 1st of this year. Yes, Madam Chair.
But then we will still have recommendations from that report that we can decide to act on in November. Okay, go ahead.
The next one is the discharge planning from inpatient treatment to public schools. This legislation was Delegate Senator Obenchain's, and the legislation passed the Senate 40-0, but died in the subcommittee in education. And the chair of education is sending the commission a letter to look at this. The study plan outlines the action that we will take place in order to accomplish looking at this piece of legislation. The third one is the collection of evidence-based practices for children and adolescents with mental health treatment needs. This is an ongoing mandate that the General Assembly has given the Commission to biannually update the collection with evidence-based practices for children with mental health treatment needs. And the one thing that's different that we're adding this year is we're going to conduct research and write a new section on the impact of social media on children and adolescents' mental health. The next one is the Office of the Children's Ombudsman Relief of Custody Work Group. And this is a continuation of the Commission's relief of custody study that we did last year. The Ombudsman is setting up a work group to determine the factors the court should consider for good cause shown and a grant petitioners for relief of care in custody of a child. Will Egan, Senior Policy Analyst for the Commission, will be participating on this work group. and the ombudsman is to report to the Commission on Youth by November 1st of this year. And the last one that you have before you really is not a study plan, it's a review, school-based mental health review. During the 2025 General Assembly session, Delegate Martinez introduced a resolution having for the Commission to look at school-based mental health. That resolution did not pass. We have been working with the Behavioral Health Care Commission. We met with Delegate Martinez. We feel like a lot of the work has already been done in the study that they conducted, and they will be here today to present that study to the Commission. And that concludes the study plans.
Okay. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Okay. Hearing none, I think I gave you some context at the beginning. And you did note that I'm hoping we can have another update on the whole Bonnier situation. So that is still on our radar. As you know, we did ask, I sent a letter to the governor asking for an independent investigation of Bonnier. I have not heard back, but I'm still talking to the administration rather regularly. So I do expect an update on that. I want to get the commission in a position so we'll be able to move forward with meaningful legislation to make some.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move now to our presentation.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Sugarline.
I believe that the proposed policy in front of us is the exact same one that we adopted last year after a lot of discussion, and I would move that we adopt it again for year 2025.
Does anybody have any questions? I guess we understand the policy. Will, just for purposes of the public understanding what our policy is, our remote meeting policy, do you want to just give us a brief explanation and then we'll take it up?
Sure. The virtual meeting policy is required to be adopted by the commission every year. And what it does is state what the commission needs to do if individual members wish to attend a commission meeting virtually, and what needs to happen if we wish to hold an all virtual meeting. So the policy on our website and in front of you all spells that out. The most important thing to our members previously when we voted on this last October was that at all virtual meetings, there would not be motions made or votes taken. So this policy hews towards other commissions' legislative policies on participation virtually.
So I renew my motion.
Okay. Colleagues, do you have any questions? All right, Will, thank you for that explanation. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Yes.
Okay, does anybody wish to vote no? If so, indicate so now. And anybody wishing to abstain, hearing none. Okay, our remote policy, remote participation policy passes unanimously. So, do you have a question? Yes. This is on a different topic, but go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just have a particular question. So in the school-based mental health review, I just wanted to ensure that the Senator Favola and I also passed legislation this year to collect data from schools. And I know that you mentioned Delegate Martinez's bill, and I just wanted to make sure that that was included in the review.
That all bills, that all.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Delegate Siebold, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, that is found on page 2. So we would have the Department of Education come present their findings of their survey. So thank you for pointing that out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that follow-up.
Thank now is the time for questions, but we are always a document. If we have to make tweaks, we will. If you all want a certain orientation to a study, please we're going to try to be possible. The purpose is to give us useful information to really solve problems and to get progress in particular areas that we know we need to make progress in. Yes, Delegate Corning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the things, having served on the House Education Committee, so seen all of these come through and the topics that seem to flow every year, we have a group of things. So mental health was a large one that came through this year. And one of the things I'm struggling with a little bit is what feels like the silos of what makes up the reviews that we do for mental health. We've had a lot of folks who provide mental health services, counseling and therapeutic services, bring forth a lot of specific legislation to get more counseling and services in our schools. But one of the things that I'll throw up as a little bit of a flag is how we look at the holistic approach of what mental health wellness looks like. It's not just those counseling and therapeutic services, but what does the entirety of a child's day look like? You know, if I don't start my day exercising, I can tell you what the end of my day is going to look like. If I don't have some quiet time during the day, I can tell you what the rest of my day is going to look like. If I don't drink enough water or eat well, and I'm a little concerned at the intensity of which we're only focusing on one area of what it means to be healthy. And if some of those other areas aren't addressed within our school days, you know, I know my own children do not move at all during the school day. They're in high school. They sit in class all day. So how we look at that holistically, and as they're collecting data, I would love us to pay attention to all the things that impact our mental health wellness. That therapy, that counseling is a piece and an important component of it, but it just feels like in mass, that's the one thing we're completely focused on and not paying as much attention to the other things that impact our students' well-being.
Okay. Well, certainly when we're looking at how effective schools are really linking students based mental health services, part of that study has to be how the schools identify students and what. So if in fact your point with the environment maybe not being possible, that should. Did you want to respond?
We can certainly work with Delegate Coiner to try to get some of those other pieces in there as well.
If I could just add something to that, and it's along the lines of kind of expanding what we would be looking at. I know that the main focus is public schools, but it may be helpful to at least incorporate what the homeschool community is doing. There could be some other ideas or some other ways that a child that's not going into the public arena, where you have a guidance counselor there on staff, you have teachers that are looking at that child, bringing different perspectives to make those choices. But what is the homeschool community doing, and are there any good ideas there? Are there transportation issues there? Are there access issues there? And again, I know this is all focusing on public school, but it could just be, it could be helpful, or even the private school communities, or that's kind of somewhere in between. And I always like to know, what role are the parents playing in a lot of these mental health situations we run into? And just in my capacity as a prosecutor, often we're getting the school reaching out to us when there are behavioral problems with a particular student. We're looking at mental health, and where I don't want to call it a failure, but we run into a problem where the parents are not on board with getting treatment and mental health for their child, and the school can't really do anything. And then our office doesn't want to do anything and go in the criminal direction, but sometimes those behaviors are impacting other students and their mental health. So expanding in two ways, both private school, homeschooling, just taking a look and seeing if they're doing it a different way, and are there some good ideas there? And then what role are parents playing in access to mental health with consenting to their child getting certain services? Thank you.
So we can look at if this, I think what the chair has just said is this kind of is outside the scope of the original intent with the homeschooling piece, but I think some important comments about the parental involvement, getting them involved as well, may be a piece that we could look at.
Yes, there are models of school-based mental health programs that have really been applauded nationally, and in those models, I think it's after like the Colorado model, after 3 or 4 sessions with a therapist, the families by law have to be involved. I mean, that's one model. So there are models out there that require parental involvement after, a certain number of sessions or however that's shaped. And I think that's part of this study. It would have to be part of the study if in fact we want a robust, if we want to fund robust programs that really do link students with mental health services. I'm not promoting the Colorado model. I just wanted to tell you that your issue had been looked at by other states. And so we'll have some frame of reference when we go forward. Great questions. I'm really very pleased that you all are engaged on these topics because I think it's important. Okay, is Natalie Millay here? She usually, I don't see her in the audience. She's with the Behavioral Health Commission. She's the chief staff person for the Behavioral Health Commission.
They're walking on over.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
I'm gonna go.
You didn't expect us to be this efficient?
Yes.
Is that what happened? Okay. I will say, I think it's worth our commission having more presentations from commissions where there's overlap. The Joint Commission on Healthcare, for example, there's a lot of overlap. We probably need to have additional presentations from groups such as Justice Forward, groups that really focus on the juvenile justice system. And we're going to try to work those in to our various meetings because children touch a lot of institutions in our society, and we want all of our institutions to be welcoming and helpful to our youth. And here is the way for that. I know you just arrived. Do you want 2 minutes? You can take 2 minutes if you wish.
Morning. My
Good morning.
apologies. I did not realize it was going to be a quick meeting. Good morning, everyone. Terribly sorry to be late. We had a little hiccup back at our offices. Claire Murray was actually the project lead for this study, so she'll be here in just a second to present the full study to you all. But wanted to thank you all for being here today to listen to this study. We conducted it back in 2023, so it's a little bit dated, but I think you'll see, I think a lot of the findings are still the same. One of the big things that's happened, unfortunately, since we conducted this study in 23, is the expiration of some significant pandemic-era funding. About $120-some million, which had been available specifically for school-based mental health services, has now expired. And there's really no replacement for that funding and no replacement on site. That's one of the things that the state might consider wrestling with. And that's one of the recommendations that we provided is for the Department of Education in conjunction with DBHDS to look at potential funding streams, to look at a way to design a program that can assist divisions both from a TA perspective as well as a funding perspective.
Question. We did have $15 million in the 2024 budget that was supposed to go out over 2 years to fund some model school-based mental health programs. Do we know the status of those grants? And
The mental health integration pilot, the DBHDS. So that money was actually redirected to school-based clinics. And although clinics certainly could provide some mental health services, their mission is much broader than that. So the school-based pilot, as we knew it, where grant funding was basically being given to, or on a competitive basis, appropriate to specific divisions to contract with private providers in their area to provide school-based services. So that's no longer in effect.
so that's been completely.
It is, yes, and that was a recommendation we actually brought to the Behavioral Health Commission last year to fund again this program, which was very much
I know
needed.
they wanted it broadened, but I was just concerned that maybe we're going to lose the focus on the community, the school-based part of it, which
That's
would
right.
be a concern to our
Sure,
commission.
of course, of course. Just very quickly, for those of you, and we have two esteemed members of the Behavioral Health Commission as your chair and vice chair of the commission on youth, so they know all about this. But very quickly, I will go over what the BHC is for the rest of y'all, since we're a fairly new commission that started back in 2021 after what y'all may remember as the Deeds Commission, which was a joint subcommittee of the General Assembly. So that was not a permanent commission. It was also not a staffed commission. And in 2021, the General Assembly decided to make this a permanent commission of the General Assembly. So the BHC is now a permanent commission. We have a staff of 4.5, and it is composed of 12 legislators. And the charge of the BHC it's a very broad and very meaty charge, is to improve the behavioral health system and services, and doing that through research-based recommendations as well as oversight of major programs that the General Assembly has funded. Thank you, Karen. We also inform legislators through our studies, and we provide options and recommendations to them every year. The BHC members then can decide to carry these recommendations by way of legislation or budget amendments the following year. And so in that way, BHC members encourage the adoption of new policies that can help Virginians have better access to services. And lastly, we conduct ongoing oversight and monitoring of some of the big programs that we've implemented in the behavioral health space, like STEP Virginia, Bravo, permanent supportive housing, to make sure that they're actually achieving the goals that the GA intended for them to achieve when they were funded. I will turn things over to Claire, and I'll be here for any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you all very much. The 2022 Appropriation Act directed the BHC staff to study how to maximize school-based mental health services. As a part of this study, we were asked to evaluate the current reach of services, identify ways to move clinical interventions into school settings, look into Medicaid behavioral health services and a new change to the state Medicaid plan affecting schools, and make recommendations about strategies to implement and expand school-based mental health. Staff conducted extensive research to inform our findings and recommendations. We visited schools and divisions across the state, interviewed staff at state agencies, analyzed data from state agencies, reviewed research literature, and sent out 2 surveys, one to school divisions and one to parents of children in Virginia schools. We found that youth in Virginia schools are experiencing significant mental health challenges. Schools are aware of those challenges, and most school divisions do provide some kind of mental health services for their students, but what those services look like can vary widely from school to school and across the state. Students have better access to low-level preventative services, but the students who need more intensive services are less likely to receive that help in school. A lot of those school-based services have been created and funded with pandemic relief money, which expired at the beginning of this year. This could lead to the loss of many existing mental health services. I'll start off by giving you a little bit of background on school-based mental health. School-based mental health services can be offered by school staff or by external providers who come into the school. There are a few baseline requirements in Virginia law. Staff have to receive mental health awareness training. Schools provide some mental health education as a part of their health and PE curricula. At the time of the study, it was only required for 9th and 10th graders, but I believe last year the General Assembly expanded this to all grades. Additionally, the state educational standards of quality have requirements and funding for a few school positions. But there are no other laws saying what kinds of mental health services schools have to provide or how much. As a result, the type and quantity of services really varies from school to school. In talking to school mental health staff, we found that most of them discuss school mental health services in what's called a multi-tiered system of supports, which is a useful framework for understanding the kinds of services or supports that you might see in schools. Tier 1 is the bottom of the pyramid. It contains preventative supports that all students should be receiving. Tier 2 above it is early intervention that 10 to 15% of students might need. And the top of the pyramid, Tier 3, is targeted higher intensity interventions for a small portion of students who need that extra level of support. Unfortunately, a number of students in Virginia do need mental health interventions. In 2022, 40% of high school students in Virginia reported symptoms of depression, and 13% of high school students had considered suicide. When we interviewed school staff, they pretty unanimously agreed that mental health issues, especially anxiety and depression, have gotten more common among students and more severe since the COVID-19 pandemic. To see what the reach of services was like, we looked at what kinds of services and supports are currently available in Virginia schools. Based on enrollment-adjusted answers from a survey sent to school divisions, we found that approximately 77% of public school students receive some Tier 1 mental health services in their school. However, more than half of students who require higher level services, those Tiers 2 and 3, were not able to receive those services at school. Because those students have higher levels of need, the consequences of them not receiving services may be serious. We also looked at what kinds of services schools are providing and how that's divided among the different tiers. For Tier 1, social and emotional learning curricula, professional development programs for staff, and suicide prevention programming are all frequently offered. Schools are less likely to offer annual mental health screenings or mental health first aid, although some divisions do provide those. Support from school staff through short-term mental health support or check-in, check-out systems is the most common means for schools to provide Tier 2 support to students. Specific evidence-based practices are also used, although not as widely. For students who need Tier 3, the highest level of support, schools often refer them to a community-based provider outside of the school for treatment. This may be a result of limited training or capacity in school staff to address higher levels of mental health needs. However, many divisions do also provide longer-term support from school staff like counselors or psychologists. Many schools also rely on therapeutic day treatment, or TDT, for Tier 3 support, and we'll talk more about the role of TDT later in the presentation. Now we're going to look at the major reasons why availability of mental health services has been limited and cover some of the options and recommendations that we suggested the General Assembly could consider adopting to address those challenges. There are many factors that have created barriers for school-based mental health, but we'll go over some of the bigger ones. Nearly half of divisions reported having trouble filling vacant school psychologist positions, and 41% have difficulty hiring school counselors. This reflects broader trends in behavioral health staffing. School mental health staff also often have other demands on their time that may interfere with their ability to provide mental health support. School psychologists spend much of their time evaluating students for special education and serving on special education committees, which are an important part of their roles. And school counselors are often tasked with non-counseling duties like supervising academic testing and coordinating 504 plans, which are accommodation plans for students with disabilities whose needs don't rise to the level of an IEP. Another factor impacting the availability of school mental health services is funding limitations. Some localities in Virginia have no additional resources they can allocate to school-based mental health. Some only have a little extra, and some are able to finance significant mental health services for their school divisions. This disparity may be due to differences in tax revenue from property taxes or business taxes, or it may be due to a locality prioritizing other kinds of services for its residents. Historically, the state has provided little money specifically for school-based mental health. Through the Educational Standards of Quality, or SOQs, the state does provide some funding for school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists, but only up to a certain ratio per student. At the time of the study, there was a new pilot program administered by DBHDS that provided funding to a few divisions for community mental health partnerships. However, that pilot program lost its funding last year. Another source of funding for school mental health services is Medicaid. Therapeutic Day Treatment, or TDT, DMAS's school-based mental health service, has historically been a large driver of state funds to school-based mental health. But as of FY 2023, Medicaid funding on TDT had declined by 82% since FY 2019. Some of the factors leading to the decline include the move of TDT to managed care, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the growing recognition that TDT might need to be reformed to work with contemporary classrooms. However, this drop in spending on TDT has left a gap in funding for Tier 3 services, especially in the divisions that have relied on TDT as their primary form of higher-tiered mental health service. DMAS does have a concept for replacing TDT with other mental health services in schools. There was also a recent change to Medicaid reimbursement. Until 2023, divisions could only ask Medicaid for reimbursement when services were related to a student's IEP. In September of that year, CMS approved a change to the Virginia Medicaid plan called the Reversal of the Free Care Rule that allows divisions to be reimbursed for health expenditures, including behavioral health, regardless of a student's IEP status. This change has the potential to expand the funding that divisions get from Medicaid, but it will require divisions to commit to additional administrative burdens and staff time for billing. In some divisions, this might require hiring new staff to take on the increased billing responsibilities.
I seem to remember, but I'm sure your memory's better. I seem to remember that we had budget language in one of our, maybe it was in 2024, where we talked about the need to add technical assistance at the state level to assist school systems in drawing down Medicaid. Did that language stay? And if it did, have we allocated an FTE or any resources? Because this will be very tough for school systems to actually access the money. And if they can't access the money, then increase to the service is not going to be real.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I believe that that language was not included in the final budget.
So I would just ask staff to make a note of that. I think that would be a recommendation this committee would be interested in moving forward, among many other recommendations in the report. Okay, thank you.
The free care rule change will also require divisions that don't currently bill Medicaid to set up a billing infrastructure in order to be able to participate. At the time of our study, about 1/5 of divisions did not engage with Medicaid, so they might incur startup costs to be able to take advantage of this rule change. DOE does provide some technical assistance to divisions for Medicaid billing, but their capacities are limited. I believe they have 1 FTE currently to handle Medicaid for the entire state. So to your point, they would need additional resources to expand that technical assistance to divisions looking for support on free care. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, student mental health appears to have worsened since the start of the pandemic. However, divisions have also gotten an influx of money for mental health through pandemic relief funds. Starting in 2020, the 3 ESSER funds have delivered billions of dollars to Virginia schools, and $123 million of that money was used for school-based mental health services. What made this funding especially useful to divisions was its flexibility. Schools could use the money to prioritize the specific needs of their student populations, and we saw divisions use the funding for a host of different purposes. Some purchased social and emotional learning curricula or mental health screening tools, some hired staff, some funded partnerships with external providers. Here you can see the timeline for the expiration of pandemic relief funds. ESSER 3, which was the bulk of the funding, expired in January 2025. Since so many divisions were supporting their school mental health services using these funds, the expiration of that money will likely lead to a backsliding in service availability. While there are some new sources of funding that we've discussed, such as the Medicaid free care rule, they're likely not of the same magnitude as the funding that will be lost, and they lack the flexibility of the pandemic relief funds. If schools are not able to recoup some of that funding, the percentage of students receiving services in schools may be reduced in the next few years. Some level of state funding would likely be necessary to mitigate that loss or to maintain current levels of service. We know that schools value flexibility in mental health funding, and we know from the experiences of the pilot program that reliability will be key. That was something that they ran into along the way with reliability of funding. There is not currently a state structure or a flexible funding mechanism for school mental health that could achieve those ends. So,
Don't mean to interrupt you. A senator has a question. Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The pandemic, funding was, very, very helpful during a very stressful time for our students and the mental health and emotional issues that they went through along with their families. What kind of progress do you sense that we have made to ameliorate a lot of the problems created through the pandemic? Is it still are the vestiges of it still there in to a significant degree, or have we made some progress against, a progress towards fixing some of that? What's your thinking?
Thank you, Senator Marsden. That's an excellent question. When we conducted the study in 2023, a lot of the statewide data that we were using to learn about student mental health issues, especially those in middle schoolers and high schoolers, I believe was coming from survey data in 2022, so not fully out of the pandemic at that point. So since the study is a few years old, I don't know that we have updated data on how things have changed since then.
Thank you.
There is currently not a state structure or a flexible funding mechanism for school mental health that could achieve those ends. So one option is that Virginia could create a new program to guide the distribution of state funding and to ensure positive outcomes for students. Through a state program, DOE could provide guidance to divisions on implementing effective school-based mental health strategies, and the state could track performance and outcome measures to ensure accountability for state money. So I'll provide some updates on the outcomes of our recommendations. Our first recommendation was to continue funding the school mental health pilot program. This was not implemented, and money for the pilot was reallocated to school health clinics. Our second recommendation was to include funding in the DMAS budget to commission a review of TDT. This recommendation was implemented. The 2024 budget gave DMAS the power to modify legacy behavioral health services, including TDT, and DMAS is currently working on a redesign of school mental health services, and they're going to make that plan publicly available this June. Our third recommendation was to include language in the budget directing DMAS to pass through additional administrative funds to DOE for 1 FTE that would assist school divisions with billing the Medicaid program. This was not implemented. Our fourth recommendation was to include budget language directing the Department of Education to work on a plan for creating a new program to deliver flexible mental health funds to divisions for school-based mental health and provide technical assistance and evaluation, set out a proposed vision and goals for this program and proposed outcome measures, and to recommend the amount of funding that should be appropriated annually along with a funding mechanism. The language was included in the 2024 budget, and DOE was directed to report back to the BHC last December with a plan for creating a new mechanism to deliver flexible mental health funds, technical assistance, a shared vision across state agencies, outcome measures, and a proposed initial funding amount. However, the DOE presentation did not include the components required of them in the budget. Instead, they focused entirely on the pilot program, which, as mentioned, no longer exists. So as of 2025, there is still no state plan for the delivery of flexible mental health funds to school divisions, nor is there a shared state vision or goals for school-based mental health. Our fifth recommendation was to include one-time funding in the budget to help divisions maintain mental health services after the expiration of ESSER funds. This was not implemented.
Just a quick question. Since I do serve on the Behavioral Health Commission, a lot of these recommendations were also considered by the Behavioral Health Commission. And some of them actually they had patrons, some did not, but I think most had patrons, if I recall. So I guess going through the legislative process, the debate was really around resources. Is that I don't like to just summarize so quickly or to minimize maybe a true intellectual debate that may have happened on these, but maybe you can capture for us the context for these recommendations, why they didn't go forward.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, that's exactly right. I think it came down to resources. All of these recommendations, excuse me, were actually picked up by BHC members, so they all were introduced. And some of them made it through the first round. Most of them that did not move forward during the conference discussion.
Yeah, the conference discussion.
And so the specific reasons why are not completely known, but.
Right. I mean, no, go ahead, Commissioner Babichenko.
And I just want to understand, the data that you were reviewing was 2022 data?
Honorable Mackenzie Babichenko, thank you for your question. I was referring to the 2022 data, some data that was a statewide survey. I think it was done by the Virginia Department of Health on a variety of student health outcomes, including mental health. And from there, we drew just the data about suicidality in teens, depression and anxiety in teens. The other data we refer to, including our survey data, any data that was collected by us was collected in 2023, since the study was conducted in 2023.
And Madam Chair,
Yeah,
is
Commissioner Babichenko.
there any way to get 2024 or more recent data to see kind of where all this money went? There's a lot of money that was put in from the pandemic funds, and to see where the money went and what the outcomes were there, so there could be maybe a more targeted focus on what types of treatment and what types of programs were truly effective. If you have that data, I can't, it sounds like 2023, but if we have more data that's closer to now, that could be helpful to seeing what was actually effective and if we're improving our outcomes with suicidality. I think I've never used that word, but so I hope I used it correctly. So that was just a thought, if we could see maybe more money went here and improved this pandemic issue, or if it's still there, maybe it didn't work and we should be focusing it on something else.
That's a great question. Thank you. So after we conducted the study in 2023, we've been doing different studies that have not been involved with school-based mental health since then. So we have not had an opportunity to go back and collect that kind of data. My understanding is that there was a bill that passed this year that would require DOE to conduct a survey of local educational agencies on their program availability for school-based mental health. So hopefully some data will be able to come from that. There should be updated data from, I think it's VDH, on the survey that they send out every year on school health, including depression and suicide. So there's probably updated data out there on that. I don't have those, but hopefully there are good resources that should be able to provide that going forward.
As part of our study plan, the commission is monitoring that school-based survey. The legislation directed the Department of Education to survey the school systems, but we are going to be talking to the Department of Education, and I'm sure if it's convenient for you all to come back at the same time as we have the Department of Ed representatives, when we do have more data on current data on what's going on in our different school systems regarding school-based mental health. So thank you for those questions. Delegate Coiner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of a follow-up and then a comment about looking through the slides on the surveys used. You know, I think one of the questions I have, maybe I think it might be helpful for the commission to see the background on the surveys, but when 111 out of 131 divisions participate, it matters a lot which divisions participated. I mean, when you take out our largest divisions in the Commonwealth, that's the vast majority actually of students at the end of the day that we have no knowledge on. If our cities are the ones that chose not to participate, we have a large number of demographics in those areas that aren't accounted for. Knowing the background on the divisions that participated, on the backgrounds on the families or students, you know, having our demographic categories tells us a lot about where we're having more success and where we're not, and where it's effective with certain student populations and not with others. So I struggle when we have surveys and we don't have the background information to understand what we can really take from this, because this may not look like one area of the state and it may look like another. So that's one. Two, just in general, after we had a meeting yesterday about surveys and then talking more about surveys. Yeah. And I feel like after so many years in working in schools, I sat here and thought, why are we surveying people anymore? Honestly, like every staff person has a computer and they interact with a child, and why is the expectation that if there's data that we believe is important to funding, why aren't we just making everybody provide that all the time on a baseline? And I think they are collecting it. We're just not then collecting it to use to make better informed decisions. I mean, every interaction that someone's having, someone's documenting and making sure, but how we are able to collect that to not count on surveys that feel most of the time they're optional. You know, my division doesn't do surveys at all anymore because I got so many parent complaints about surveys. We survey people to death in some places. So I don't know, just in looking at, I had so many questions about what this data really means depending on which divisions, and then that led me through going, you know, why are we continuing to rely on surveys as the way that we're trying to make really important decisions for kids in Virginia?
I would hope by the phrase survey, we do include the data that's already required to be reported, which is a fair amount, and then we can analyze that. But to your point, we're learning that you know, sometimes there are biases in surveys, and not all groups, especially parents or school administrators, can capture what's going on in the different subgroups, subpopulations. Their children of color sometimes don't get picked up, or the reporting is not as good, and it just doesn't give us really good data. But were you going to respond?
Sure, that's an excellent question, Madam Chair, Delegate Coiner. You're absolutely right. And the surveys that we do are usually the last resort. The first thing we do is assess what data actually exists and what data is available. There's a big difference between data being collected and data being available. There are files with tons and tons of numbers and information at local school divisions or in schools. Obviously, that data is very hard to obtain and to use centrally. And I think there's also a concern about balancing the value of all of that data and making people report it because of the administrative burden that it creates. And I think that's a situation that we hear a lot about when we talk to schools, but also when we talk to CSBs. There's a balance that needs to be achieved between the two. But in terms of data, so we analyzed all of the data that existed. One of the things that we did find is there is very little data. We contacted the divisions thinking that they would hopefully have school-level information, and very little of that actually is documented and existed, which is how we ended up relying on these surveys. And same thing with parents. Surveys are absolutely going to be potentially biased or flawed depending on the number of people you're able to get and whether or not that's representative of the state. However, that's unfortunately the best proxy that we have for parents' feelings and experiences with the system. So just wanting to say that you're right about surveys and the limitations, and then we're cognizant of those and rely on them only when nothing else more objective exists.
Sometimes one-on-one interviews can be more effective than actually having somebody fill out a form too. I know that's very labor intensive and may not give you as broad a base sample size, but it is a tool in the toolbox. I'll ask my colleagues if they have, my colleagues, okay, Senator Marsden.
Different topic, but.
Sure, so we're still on this general topic.
Well, just surveys, when you're finished with that, Senator.
Okay, I think we can move on. Go ahead, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My memory of the Comprehensive Services Act was that there were, special education and foster care were mandated services, and non-mandated were the juvenile justice issues and mental health. Has anybody been successful with Tier 3, serious mental health kids of accessing CSA resources to deal with, some of the kids who were at those higher levels of need?
Thank you, Senator Marsden. I believe in some of the interviews that we conducted with schools and the school visits, CSA funds did come up. I will confess it's been a couple years and I don't remember the details, but I remember hearing about that sometimes during interviews, but I wish I could tell you more.
It is the big source of funding, though, in the school system. So, Amy, would you annotate, it's now called the Children's Services Act.
The Children's Services Act.
Right. So would you please annotate that issue so we could get a little bit more information to actually specifically address Senator Marsden's question, because that is a venue of it's a pot of money, and overall, it's the FAP teams that are analyzing the child and accessing the Children's Services Act funding. And I don't know with the FAP teams I don't know how deep they go into the mental health issue.
Well, my understanding, at least, I'm way out of date on some of this stuff, but the problem has always been some jurisdictions had funding for non-mandated kinds of services and other jurisdictions didn't. And the priority was always with foster care and special education. And just wondering whether there are any jurisdictions in a position, to use the act to provide services for kids, because usually that's on their own expense. But the FAP teams and the whatever are able to do that if those funds are available.
Do you have any information on that? I don't know, Natalie, you wouldn't necessarily.
Madam Chair, Senator Marsden, we do not have information on CSA. That was a little bit outside the scope of what we were looking at, but I think that's a really great question, is to what extent we're able to leverage CSA funds, both for kids who are either in foster care or on an IEP, but also, as you said, the non-mandated population of children.
Madam Chair, if I might just follow up, is that sometimes the way things get utilized in beneficial ways is for somebody to sort of be the first to do it, or to set an example of how funds can be accessed in that way, and then other jurisdictions begin to look at it as a potential. and set aside some money in local budgets or whatever to, to handle these kinds of things. Because, obviously, it's one issue to deal with the tier 1 kinds of kids, and the very, very targeted tier 3 type kids present an entirely different burden financially, and you're spending a lot of resources on one child as opposed to resources on a number of kids who have broader but less severe needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, did you want to respond? I didn't mean
I could
to.
say, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say we could invite Scott Reiner to the commission to give a presentation on what Senator Marsden brought up about the non-mandated, mandated, and the funds for mental health.
I think that would be very helpful for the commission, and certainly the Behavioral Health Commission staff and members would be welcome to attend that portion of the Commission on Youth meeting, because I think we could make some meaningful headway there. That's a venue. And it's also, the Children's Services Act is state and locally funded, where the money we're looking at right now would all be state money. So that's another factor, with the exception of Medicaid, if we could figure out how to actually help the schools draw down Medicaid. So, boy, we get into the weeds. We've got a very good commission here. Anything else, colleagues? Okay, we're going to keep this report, and some of your recommendations, I hope, will appear before the commission in November, when we make our recommendations on legislation that should go forward. And we will have additional presentations in this area, colleagues, between now and November. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, thank you. We have been extraordinarily efficient. It is 5 of 11, and we have completed our stated agenda, but I see folks have their finger on microphones, so there may be other issues that come up. Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with former DJJ Director Andy Block, talking about some of the issues surrounding Bonaire and other issues that are going on in the juvenile justice world. And one of the things we discussed that I think can be, just to bring it to the Commission's attention, as you have requested the governor to study this issue, is that one of the things that we might do, I am currently co-chair of the advisory board to the Ombudsman program for the Department of Corrections. And our thinking was, there are two ombudsman programs that are relevant here to DJJ. One is the Children's Ombudsman, which brings certain strengths and viewpoints to the issue of treatment of young people in an incarcerated situation. And the other is the corrections aspect of it, which are, the majority of our young people in juvenile corrections are adults, with serious charges, and they present sometimes serious behavioral issues, and that to find some way of either choosing one of those two ombudsman programs to put DJJ, or at least their residential aspects of DJJ, under that, and maybe explore some kind of a joint look at things as problems come up in the future, as they're identified. But just to keep that in mind, that might be legislation that we could look at as part of this. I don't know how the governor is going to respond, but the idea of getting this under something that is permanent, that can look at things as they come up, would be a good thing to look at.
I think that's a good idea. We were going to have Eric Reynolds, who actually he is in children's foster care space. As far as I know, he does not have DJJ under his scope, but we need to perhaps engage as well as some other experts. Look at that as a structural change again, possible. I think that could make a huge. That would lose permanence.
oversight, which is at the end of the day when we really, in addition to having better staff, better trained staff, and really helpful rehabilitation and education. I read the report that Ms. McConnell gave us. She was a law professor from the university. Really emphasized focusing on giving our young people who are incarcerated a lot of reentry programs. Our reentry is not robust and is not public. Did a better job in that space.
Madam Chair,
Marsden.
if I could also mention to Amy that the model programs guide that the OJJDP runs would probably have, a lot of the information that you would want to look at in, under their voluminous amounts of evaluations they've done on youth programs around the country.
Okay, colleagues, are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Okay, did you second that, Mr. Marcy? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305.